Hello, fellow guitar players. Henning Pauli here. Today is Sunday, and I'm gonna just ramble on about something. We've had comments about, you get to the point. Oftentimes, there's no point. Just some thoughts. And I had some thoughts yesterday. So, it was Supergain TV, which is a German guitar show on YouTube. They had a panel discussion with two guitar builders and two physicists who are into guitar. We have Professor Dr. Zollner, blah, blah, blah. There's someone who's done a lot of tests on the sound of the electric guitar who claims, Tonewood isn't a thing. And his tests, independent of the guitar player, show that, what makes a difference on guitar and what doesn't. And watching this 1 hour discussion, and I've seen other videos of the man and these Tonewood discussions, and of course Glenn Fricker, who does scientific tests. Yeah, blind tests. Hear this guitar versus that guitar. And I get it. I get that to the listener, A, B, an expensive guitar versus a cheap guitar, alder versus mahogany. You can't tell the differences in certain circumstances. And independent of the guitar player, just looking at the guitar, doing scientific physics tests, oscilloscopes, words. It's all humbug, and we are fooling ourselves because very likely the differences are so tiny that they don't matter in the final result. I actually think looking at the guitar separated from the player, they're fully right. They don't make a difference in the final result at all. Neither really does what modeler you use or even what amp you use. Most certainly not what pickups or what the wood of the guitar is. However, instruments are not independent of the player. And this is a big thing that they are talking about. It's in German. I assume there are English subtitles on the discussion. But something really struck me deep in my heart. Something really shocked me. I was watching this and I was making arguments on the side of believe the magic, believe the mystery. Now, what does that mean? Now, even though science can say, look at this oscilloscope, I'm plugging the guitar, and then I'm changing the strings and I'm changing the wood, and here's a different. It can say there's no difference, isolated of the player. Even though that's what the science says, that there's no difference, I'm yelling at the screen quietly. Yeah, but to the player, it makes a difference. And if the player believes there's a difference, then there is a difference. Which is true. We'll get into that. But those arguments, the arguments I was bringing, let the players remain naive. Leave them their belief that a mahogany guitar will sound different than an alder guitar, or that a certain pickup will do something or whatever. Don't educate them in the science that actually it doesn't make a difference. Leave them their wrong beliefs. Let them believe that Tonewood is a thing, and so on and so on. So I was saying these things in my head, and that really scared me. It really scared me because I'm an atheist. I don't believe in belief. I believe in science. If the science says that's a thing, then that's a thing. And yet I was taking the side of the religious person. I was taking the side of, don't explain the rainbow to me. What does it mean? I made an album. I have a full album. This is pretty shocking to me that I'm looking at the guitar in a religious way, in a way. But so I made an album called Unweaving the Rainbow, which is based on a book by Richard Dawkins, who's of course an atheist, a very vocal atheist, and zoologist and geneticist. And in the book, it's all about science unraveling things, explaining things in nature, and a lot of religious people would say, well, don't explain it to us. We like to believe in the magic of the rainbow. And Dawkins argues, well, but what actually makes a rainbow, what really is happening, the physics behind it, is as interesting and awe-inspiring as you thinking it's some magical fairy dust god thing. So, unweaving the rainbow reveals what's really happening scientifically and should be as awe-inspiring as the naive interpretation of it in a religious or spiritual sense. And he's right. And I've always lived by this. Science and scientific explanations are necessary and are not less awe-inspiring. What's actually happening in nature is amazing. So here I am watching this discussion saying, I don't care about the physics. I don't want the physics. I want to believe that Les Paul is different because of the Tonewood, or that this guitar is better, that my Nick Huber is a better guitar because of the amazing woods used and so on. Because at the moment, they haven't really said, well, why is a good guitar and a bad guitar a bad guitar? Is it setup only? Is it the pickups? Because I don't believe that, but that's the word, that's the belief. And I do firmly hold the conviction, I'm not saying believe, I just said, that the guitar player needs to approach gear in a religious sense, in a sense of I don't care what actually is happening, to get the performance out of it. Because in the end, the gear isn't what matters. It's the performance. The performance matters. If you perform in a certain way, then you have music is music. Music is the performance. Music is the notes you play. Music is a little wiggly bend. Music is your emotion poured into the music through the instrument. It isn't a thing making a sound independent of the musician. It's mostly the musician, and then the instrument is the vehicle to get the notes recorded or amplified into an audience. And the same way the amplifier, the cables, the pedals. And there is a lot of snake oil. I would absolutely agree. But I think we need that mystery magic, because if it's, why am I arguing this way? It's really bugging me, because that is not me in the world we live in. So, when you play, you approach a Strat. And with that, with its alder and maple neck, and they used maple because it was, I don't know, cheap back then, and now that's the way it is. But you approach that instrument with a set of expectations. It's going to sound a certain way, therefore I play a certain way, because I actually record a song that needs a certain sound and a certain way of approaching it. So I play a Strat and I invoke Hendrix, Vaughan, Gilmour, etc., etc. And you look at a guitar with a different set of electronics, pickup, wood, shape, and you're going to play differently. If you play because of your expectations of the instrument, it's all psychology. And if you do that, the music will be different. So, based on what they are saying, the physicists, the instrument has nothing to do with it. But the psychology here cannot be denied. The psychology is important. Okay? How I play and what I play, if that is affected by the gear that I play because I think it requires a different approach. Then what comes out is different. So therefore, the presence of a different Tonewood or pickup or amp or whatever is absolutely going to affect the outcome. Not because of physics, but because of psychology. But the psychology is there. The player is there, and you're never going to take that away from them. The color of the guitar. I don't know. I held this thing up. Here, sparkle guitar, 2 humbuckers, tremolo. Can you do many, many different things on it? Yes. Can I play jazz on it? I mean, Mike Stern plays jazz on a telly with a humbucker. Absolutely. But am I going to think that this thing is going to do Eddie stuff and 80s stuff and rock and roll? Absolutely. Can I play amazing rock on a Synergy with a JMP module? I think it's one of the best plexis on the market, and it's rather affordable at $1,600, given the fact how good it is with built-in IR load and all that. A Synergy head with the JMP in it is amazing. However, I'm looking at a Friedman Arredondo, which is a Jose modded plexi, that actually, when recorded, will likely give me the same or similar results. And neither of them is going to beat the other, and someone's going to say, oh my God, that was clearly an Arredondo. Oh my God, that was a Synergy module. No, both of them will absolutely get me there. However, playing the Arredondo, and not just because of the price point, but because of the history and the lore behind it, I will likely play with a different reverence for the gear. And that stuff matters. So here I am watching this, making arguments of religious people, which not the people, but I despise these arguments. If you explain it, you take away the magic. If you explain it, you take away the mystery. We don't want to know. We want to believe. Believe is important. Now I understand this for the first time. I do hold the conviction that religious belief is harmful because it leads to hunger, death, war, torture, rape in some cases. It's very harmful for society and the world as a whole. Apparently there are some kind of beliefs that are not harmful, especially when they're my kind of beliefs and they apply to me. Like believing that a guitar made out of a certain wood is going to result in a certain sound. Therefore, I approach it with the expectation in that sound, and I also go for everything else within that sound, meaning the settings on the amp and the pedals. Even if I'm thinking, oh, my Zeola cable for $300 is going to get me more dynamics. Well, I might actually play more dynamically. That 7-string guitar is I'm going to have to chug on it. It can't do it, So the way that you approach the music and your performance, and it's all the performance really, matters. And if you approach it differently because of different gear and your expectations into the gear, therefore the music will be different. If I buy into it, that the wood and so many other things don't matter, and a good guitar is a good guitar because it's a good guitar, but we don't actually know why. I mean, pick up any Nick Huber and you're going to go like, oh my God, is that good? Pick up any Shabbat. It's going to blow your mind. Why is a good guitar? Because of better pickups? Absolutely not. Anything I've done with pickups always showed that they don't matter too much. Honestly, tiny details, right? More output, less output. I get it. But they didn't drastically change the sound of the instrument. So what makes the sound of the instrument if it's not the pickups and if it's not the wood? That's a different discussion. But do you agree that the way we approach the gear has a lot less to do with physics and what actually is happening, and all with what we think it will do? If I have a King of Tone that I waited 7 years for. It's a dual overdrive with a couple knobs. Is that going to be actually different than the King of Tone from Chase Bliss, or the Throne of Tone from Warm Audio, or so many other kings and thrones and whatever? No, but you get in that thing that you've waited so long for, this holy grail pedal, and you'll likely play with a different, I think reverence is the word, with a different respect for the gear, with a different respect for the legacy of it. So I will have to admit that I do see guitar gear in a spiritual, religious sense. Because I did oftentimes argue with the physicist in my head, saying, I don't want to know. And that shocked me. That really, as an atheist, I'm all about the science and what is actually happening. In saying, I don't want to know, that's not me. That's religious people talk. I just want to believe and be happy believing that what I believe is true, and that gets me to where I want to go. I'm thinking for guitar, that is likely true. What a messed up world we live in. Okay. Discuss. The physics or the science of electric guitar is the book from Professor Dr. Zollner. It's in German, but it has been translated into English if you want to read it. I've seen many of his videos, and I've never... yes, he's a physics professor. I didn't think that the tests he did were... It never factored in the player, and he's not the greatest player. And simple thing that here's a D, plonk, here's a note, plonk. But this is how you do it. But as soon as you put a hand on an instrument, all the scientific methods are gone. Oh, something that they talked about, very, very interesting. As soon as you put your finger on a string, you're muting the string. Well, it's not really true. As soon as you put your finger on a string, it's pushing on the fret, right? But they said the most resonant thing on a guitar is the neck, and that is true. And the string, even though resting on the fret, rests on the neck. And your hand on the neck is breaking or slowing down vibration, resonance. That's a very good point. And then I was thinking what Joe Satriani said. Joe Satriani said the thumb is not to hold the neck, okay? The thumb is not there to heavily push down on it. The thumb is there to guide gently, right? So the actual pressure doesn't come from pushing your hand together. The actual pressure comes from pulling your hand backwards, this direction. I mean, let me show you. So you could play without your thumb in the back. See? That's probably out of focus, sorry. Chords. No thumb. You could do it all without pushing. And now the question is, will someone who gently guides their thumb in the back and does it by pulling backward have a better sustain and a better tone because the neck can actually vibrate easier than someone who clamps onto the neck? And maybe that's where a lot of the differences between players comes from, because you're not, if I'm really holding onto the neck, I don't know, maybe that makes a difference. Interesting thoughts. Moving on. Happy whatever days today, I don't know. Has it been Christmas? I don't know. whatever it is. Happy holidays. That's how I say that. And animals at the end.